Okay, guys, we're following up on this sermon series about the road to Emmaus and about how Jesus' interaction with the two friends on the road is kind of a model for us and how we do evangelism in a postmodern setting, or even now a post-Christian setting that some are now addressing at. So I guess the first question I want to go back to is this question of worldview. A lot of people that we talk to now have a different understanding of the world, how it works, what's important, and we always assume that everybody grew up Baptist, or at least I assume everybody grew up Baptist like I did, and that's not true anymore. So first question, what is a worldview?
Well, Mike, as a missionary, we did a lot of study of worldview. To boil it down in the simplest terms, a worldview is how a person understands the world, a view, how they see the world.
Kind of like a lens through which...
And it governs every aspect of their life, how they interpret life, how they understand life. If you say something, they will automatically interpret that. You say God is love. They don't view God as love. Well, they view God as mean, mad, capricious. And so you have to understand how they will be understanding the words you use, basically. Jesus said very simply, I'm going to make you fishers of men. You follow me and I'll make you a fisher of men. You've all been fishing with someone, and they understand the fish. They know what they eat. They know when they eat. They know the kind of weather they like. And so they can communicate with the fish through the bait in order to catch that fish.
I had a professor who always said worldviews are like belly buttons. Everybody has one. We just don't talk about them very much. And
well, where do you get it?
Well, one thing is you get it from, you help understand somebody's worldview. I think there are kind of four basic questions that you're kind of listening for, trying to pick up on answers to. Who are we? Where did we come from? What's wrong with the world? And what we can do about it. And usually people in the course of conversation are going to reveal in some way, shape, or form what they think about one of those four things. And the worldviews come to them in all different ways. A lot of times it's really a mixture, and that's part of the challenge and why it's so important to listen, is that they've got a smorgasbord of belief systems, of things they grew up with, of just things that they've deduced over the years.
They may have not articulated or thought through until that present conversation.
Absolutely.
And most people have never really thought about it. They just assume this is the way everybody thinks.
That's right.
And they, for example, own values. Everybody has the same values that I have. Ethics, everybody thinks the same way in terms of what's right and wrong.
That's right. We use the analogy of an iceberg sometimes. The actions that are on the surface that you can see, actually beneath the surface is the values that are then built on their belief system, which is their worldview. And so until you sit with somebody long enough to be able to discern that, their actions won't make any sense to you or to me. But it gives us the key window into understanding where they're coming from and kind of what they're about.
I think one of the new things that's happening in the North American church in our post-Christian setting is that we're now having to think like missionaries. We're having to exegete our own cultures now and to find out what they value and what they think, and then how we can respond to that in conversation. As a missionary in your training, what are the kind of key things that you would be looking for?
First of all, for me, is how a person learns. When we first went to Brazil, I would sit by a school, and it was open school, no air conditioning. So I could sit by that school and listen to people talk, and listen to the teachers talk. How do people learn? Because if I taught like I learned in school, and they learned a different way, we wouldn't communicate. So I had to learn how the people learned. I had to learn, do they look at themselves as a victim, or do they assume responsibility for their actions? In more of a socialist country like Brazil, people looked that the government was the one that was going to solve their problems. They did not assume personal responsibility. It was responsibility of someone else. So one of the big difficulties in sharing the gospel is, no, you do have a responsibility before God. You can't cast that responsibility onto someone else. And so it was a sense of learning how they learned. And then what is right and wrong. For example, I was also working with the deaf. They asked me to help evangelize deaf, which I had no idea. So I sat down and I started talking with some folks. I said, what do you understand about God? What do you understand about sin? And this was the big one for me, because they said, God is not going to judge us as serious as he does somebody else. Because of our handicap, he's going to cut us some slack. So when we sin, he is going to be gracious with us and overlook our sin. And I said, well, look, that's going to be something you guys are going to have to deal with. And so then we looked at Noah and the ark. You think there were blind people, deaf people in the flood? Yeah. I said, it didn't matter. So this is going to be something. So understanding what the person thinks about sin, about forgiveness, about how to have eternal
Open-ended
life.
questions, are a great way to get to probe a little bit and to discover the worldview. So then you can take the gospel and intersect where they're at. Like with this people and their handicap, that was a way that you could speak in to where they were at.
And it was also like this last week in the parlor, a young lady came in and she said, I want to understand Christianity and how it's different from my belief or from the Eastern religion that I practice. And so I asked her, I said, what do you believe about Jesus? Rather than just start explaining, what do you believe? And she explained what she said and was able to show the difference.
Good. All right, let's draw this worldview thing to a close. First, one, everybody has a worldview. And it's important for us, one, to understand our own worldview and to be able to articulate that, and then understand the worldview of the person that we're in conversation with. We're glad you joined us for this little short discussion on worldview, and I hope you heard the main points. One, everybody has a worldview, even though they may not know they have one. So the important thing when you talk to somebody about their faith is to understand the worldview that brings them to where they are now. So here are the two assignments. First, find your own worldview and be able to articulate it. Know the story that you believe about where we came from, what we're here for, what's important, value, the great meta-narrative that we call it, that informs the values and truth of our lives. And second, be able to find a handful of questions that will help you discern the worldview of the person you're talking with. That will be the beginning point of any conversation about their relationship with Christ. Know your own worldview, and then find questions to help you find the other person's worldview.